first start Adobe Premiere, you'll want to find it if it's not on your dock, which I don't have it for some reason. This upper right hand corner, and you'll find it magnifying glass. I already have it open here on my computer. Yours is going to look a little bit different because the home page on the institutional version is going to look a little bit different. There's some things that you can do. You can learn and go through some of these basic things on your own. And so you can view some of these tutorials, and they're really, really great. But we're going to open up a new project, so just know that these tutorials are always there. So let's open up a new project, and so the first thing that we want to do when we open up a new project is to remember where we're saving everything to. So never leave a project untitled, and never go to the default. Always be aware of where your projects are saved, and also give the project a name. So I'm going to title mine Opening Tutorial, and I'm saving this to my external hard drive. It's just a good practice to get into, not to use your system's computer. Always use some sort of either an SD card, and of course I don't remember what I think I called this. I have no idea what I called this. Since I have to go to lessons anyway, I'll put it in my lessons folder. And there's a couple other things that they typically go to their default. You can keep these scratch settings. So this is kind of going into a little bit more technical things, but just know that your autosave projects, I always like to keep everything kind of in the same folder. And that way, in case you need to access your project again, if your computer crashes, just know that it saves the last version of your project here. So I think it's fine to keep this the same as project, or you can keep it onto your the hard drive. I'm not too particular because these tend to be rather small files. And then you'll want to go to Ingest Settings, and of course this is going to be on your demonstration video. Now, Ingest Settings, this allows you to copy all of your media, okay? And what this does is it makes your project file a lot heavier. So, and that can really clog up your external hard drive. It can clog up your system if you're keeping it on your system, because it basically, so if you're working with a lot of media, you will find that you could really overload your external hard drive or your actual hard drive if you choose Ingest. However, if you know that you're going to be working with several computers, different computers, then you want to ingest your media, because that way you're always taking your media with you. So this is similar to Final Cut Pro. They automatically ingest all of your media into the libraries. And so this is similar to like that library that you create when you open up Final Cut Pro. So for us this semester, we're going to uncheck ingest. So just know what that does and why you would or wouldn't use it. So then we'll hit OK. So then we have our interface here. And our interface is set up very much like the old tape-to-tape program. This is linear editing. So you always will have a source monitor, and this is to the left. You always have a program monitor. And so your source monitor, you do certain things in there. And just know that we have a difference between effects controls and effects. So this is your source monitor. This is your program monitor. This is what your project actually looks like, because this is a visual representation of your timeline. Of course, your timeline looks very, very similar to Final Cut Pro. And so you can do some manipulations in program, but you also can do a lot of things in effects in this pane as well. We'll be working a lot with this pane this semester. And then you have, to the bottom left, you have the project pane. And the project pane is where you import your media. That's where you see your media. And you also want to make sure that this is your the proper workspace. So if you notice that we're in the editing workspace, if for some reason your workspace looks kind of weird, you might have accidentally hit something to change the workspace. Just know that you can always go up to here and do reset to saved layout. Okay, and that kind of resets your layout. Of course, mine didn't change because this is the default layout. So we do some things in this project pane. You can access your video effects here. So obviously this is a small computer. It's going to have, a lot of tabs as you don't see. And this is where you're going to see your media once we import it. All right. There's also a couple of tools down here that we'll work with. And so let's import some video just to get us started. So you go to File and Import. So you can also use the keyboard shortcut there, which is Command I, which is different from regular I. So I'm going to find some of my lesson files. So you can go to the lesson folder that we have for the class, and I use Laura in the Snow in class, and it probably wasn't a good idea. Let's do this Theft Unexpected, and I'm just going to take just three pieces of video, and you can just pull any video you want to. So as you can see, I always use list view because it gives me the frame rate. It gives you a lot of this information about the video. It gives you the dimensions. So this is done in 720p. And so you can, sometimes when we have problems with some of our video, it's because you have video with different frame rates mixing together. And then certain video might be in 720p, some might be in 1080i, and some might be in the 4K. So I always keep it in list view. Students who are used to Final Cut Pro might keep it in icon view. But for me, it's really cumbersome to, especially when I have a ton of video, which I typically do, to have to sift through all the icons from here. So I typically keep it on list view. Okay. But again, that's just your own, choice. I'm looking at the my notes from yesterday. We will be linking media eventually, so we'll talk about that in Tuesday's class. So again, your workspaces, we're going to be working primarily with the editing workspace this semester. We'll also be looking at color, effects, and audio. I don't work too much with these workspaces, but just know that they're there. So let me say new bin. And you can also create, we'll be looking at these as well. You can organize some of your files using bins. There's basically folders. You can also create new items. Here are new sequences. We'll be dealing a lot with these items this semester, so you can create several more sequences. Right now I don't have a new sequence. You can create a new sequence from here, but lots of times when we're working with video that we haven't shot ourselves, you don't know if it's been shot with DSLR or whatever. As you can see, this might have been shot with a DSLR. I know that it's probably this, but so just trying to guess at all the parameters can be kind of cumbersome, but ultimately what happens is you do exactly what we do in Final Cut Pro, and I typically just create a sequence based on the primary video that you have for your project. So take a little piece of video from your primary project and drag that into the timeline. And so then it creates a sequence based on this video. And so that's a feature that that I like to use. So once that's created, then you can delete that off of there. But that creates your sequence and also names the sequence based on that clip. So you probably want to change that. And for some reason, it wouldn't let me change the name of that. Oh, I'm going to call it opening sequence. So you can change the name of the sequence. It's probably a good idea to differentiate it from the clips. As you can see right here, we have this is a sequence icon, and this shows that you have audio and video. The green one is audio and the purple one is video. So that's just the basic side, the icons that we're going to be working with. Eventually we'll have graphics and things like that. Let's say manage the time toolbar. I don't know why it's not letting. There we go. The other thing that we'll be paying attention to is audio. And so just make sure you have on the right hand side your audio meters. And if you don't see it, then you go to your workspaces, your window, and just make sure that the audio meters are clicked. So watch what happens when I get rid of it. Oh, it still keeps it in there. Okay, well, we'll just keep it. For some reason, it doesn't deselect it. Anyway, but you can add some other things to your timeline, but just make sure that you can see these audio meters because they're pretty important. Just make sure that your audio is set to kind of average at -12. Sometimes it can peak up to -6. Some broadcasts will let you go to -6, and we'll find ways to level our audio this semester. Try not to get it to go into the red. Just try to keep it around this area this semester. So one thing that's kind of nice is that we'll start editing in a second. So we've imported our files, and let's look at one of these clips. And so obviously what a lot of students do when they first edit is, they just take the whole clip and they just drop it onto the timeline and edit it from there. You want to kind of avoid that because especially when you're getting into frame-specific editing, you really want to be very precise about how much of that particular piece of video you're going to see on scene, on screen. So what I like to do is set an in point and out point before I start. So obviously, like this stuff is just nothing. You would never put this into your final project. So why not edit it from here? So you put your playhead so the guy comes into the screen. So let's get it just before. And then I hit my in point. So you can do a mark in from here. But I typically like to use the I key. and that sets an endpoint into your timeline. Obviously, he's going to sit down, and I like to edit on the action, so he's just about to sit down, and I set my out point. And then you can drag this down to your timeline, or I'm just going to put overwrite. Okay. So one thing you also want to know is that these are your routers, and your routers will allow you to designate where you want your audio and video to go. So right now I have it set to channel 1, and my audio is set to channel 2 here. So I could redo it and set it to channel 1 and video 2. So you'll see it in the next piece of video that I put onto the timeline. So I'm going to do HS John. This is just, and these videos just like going to be not even related. So obviously you want to take the best piece of video. And have the guy come in. This is a pretty long clip. And I can add this overwrite as well. Okay, so notice that it goes to these specific channels. Another thing, if you want to, we're going to be working with this as well, you can expand your, you can expand the different channels. So if you want to make this larger, and we will be needing to do this semester, so you can expand the tracks themselves, because we'll be working with these little things, little fun things, and these little fun things throughout the semester. So that's just how you can make those bigger. And then you can also make your timeline longer, and of course it makes it a little difficult to work with specific frames, or you can make it shorter. So this is how you adjust the size of your timeline down here. I like to know how much video I'm working with, so I try to, so if I know my project's going to be at about 1:30, I kind of make the timeline to be about 1:30. So we've already put a couple clips onto the timeline. So watch what happens when, of course, this is probably going to look ridiculous. So I didn't do that too well, but we'll be working with that this semester as well. So then we have this, excuse me, tilted. I don't know why this is any different. I probably should have put a different piece of video in there. So say you have another piece of video. Excuse me. And you want to insert it here. So this is going to be a jump cut, but this is just to demonstrate you. So if you know that this piece of video is going to kind of interrupt, then you want to hit insert. Okay, and so you can set an endpoint here on the timeline, or clear in and out, or wherever your playhead is, that's where the video is going to be inserted. So when we do 3-point editing, this is essentially what this is. It means setting an in point and an out point either on the timeline or the source monitor, and then setting at least an in point or an out point on the other one. So right now I'm doing 3-point editing. We'll be doing 4-point editing further on. And so now what happens is, so watch the difference between overwrite and insert. So so my video is going to video 1. So watch how it will interrupt this video and it'll splice it when I hit insert. Okay, So it interrupts it, but it still lets the rest of the video play. You contrast that with overwrite. So notice, watch the size of my timeline doesn't change when I hit overwrite. So the size of my timeline doesn't change. See that? So overwrite just wipes out whatever video is in that specific track and just replaces it. So this is similar to insert and overwrite in Microsoft Word. So then, let's see. So then we might want to record a voiceover. And you can do this right here in Adobe Premiere. I would suggest, it's like sometimes it might yell at me. It usually does yell at me when I record it right in here. But so say I want to record a voiceover in, say, this track. You can access these in Premiere Pro. You go to Preferences, Audio Hardware. My default import is, I actually have a separate device, but you can also use your own built-in microphone, which is probably going to be the case for you. So since I already have my built-in microphone here, I'm going to hit my record, and I can record, and of course it's playing back and giving me feedback, but that's because I have a speaker. And now you can, so notice that you have a record file right here, and now I can record, and of course it's playing back and giving me feedback, but that's because. So what'll happen is typically I like to record my audio and make sure that my speakers are separate, so it's not getting those feedback. So that is the essentials. Hold on, let me make sure I've got everything that I wanted to write down. Workspaces, head. I want to make sure I have enough for your first assignment. Insert, overwrite, the audio routers, adjust the size, shorten the timeline, record voiceover. Okay. So, so then this is the most important part, is that we know from editing with Final Cut Pro, you can't just submit this. You can't just submit a project file as your media. You have to export it in some sort of form so it plays back to whatever you're gonna play it. Just also notice that right up here, you might have a yellow line. If you have a yellow line, it means it needs to render. So just go to Sequence, Render In and Out, and it should just take a second because these are just basic video files. Sometimes it might take a long time when you're doing your opens and such, and you're going to have a lot of intricate graphics, a lot of sequences upon sequences. So just know that rendering usually takes a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, but sometimes it can take much longer depending upon the processing speed of your computer. So right now this is green, so that means I'm good to go. And you go to File and Export and Media. All right. And this semester, we're going to be doing everything through YouTube. So make sure that this is set to H.264. The default on yours might be different. So just make sure that this is set to H.264. And make sure that this is set to YouTube. Now I know that this video is shot in 720p, so I'm going to choose that for my preset. And you can publish things directly onto YouTube now. That's something relatively new in Adobe Premiere. I don't like to do that because what happens if your internet crashes or something like that? That way you always have a copy saved on your computer and it's easy to find, blah, 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 blah. Your output name, just note your output name is always going to be the same as the name of your sequence. Also check to see where your output name is saved. So right now it's saved to a video I did for the department. So make sure that you're saving your file to the appropriate place. So that way you know that it's a place that you can find to further upload to YouTube. And then after you're done, you hit export. And so it just takes a second to export. And then it's done. So then I'll go back to my hard drive. And there is my file right there. All right. And it looks like crap, but anyway. So anyway, that's just the basics of Adobe Premiere. That was chapters 1 through 5 in your text. We'll go through the next few chapters in the next video.